Hello, everybody. Welcome to MongoDB TV. I'm McAllister. I'm on the developer relations team here at MongoDB, and it's great to have you join us as ever. Today's live stream is all about building production-ready RAG apps with Together AI and MongoDB. And I'm thrilled to have Hassan from developer relations at Together AI joining us. So Hassan is going to share his insights and expertise on leveraging AI with obviously Together AI and with MongoDB technologies to create robust real-world applications. So without further ado, Hassan, you're very welcome to MongoDB TV. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Not at all. It's great to have you as a guest. An awful lot of the time, Hassan, I have never met our guests in person, but I had the opportunity to meet you in your offices in San Francisco and also at our .local event in New York. So it's nice to have a somewhat familiar face join me on MongoDB TV.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great. I'm looking forward to this.
Excellent, excellent. So I know you were on with my colleague Mike Lynn a couple of months ago too, and we're doing somewhat similar in this space today. But you know, for those that haven't seen that episode, and I always try to talk to my guests about your career to date and how you got here, how you ended up at Together AI. So for our viewers, a little bit of a background. What did you do to get to where you are today, Hassan?
Yeah, I was in college majoring in electrical engineering, and I thought that was going to be my kind of career path moving forward. I
Right.
accepted a job as an electrical engineer, and then kind of just started to get into coding. I kind of discovered that I really like building stuff on the side, and I like talking to people as well. And so I found out about this little job title called developer relations, and it's been history ever since. I got into this field, and I just enjoy what I do a lot. And so it's been a great kind of journey. I originally worked at this small seed stage company, and then I joined a larger company called Vercel, and then now I'm at Together AI.
Ah, very good, very good. I did electrical engineering as well too, and I remember being incredibly, and this is a long time before you did it, I would imagine, but I remember being incredibly disappointed that they weren't letting us loose on a lot of circuits and stuff. It was pure maths as far as I was concerned, and things like that too. And I have a somewhat meandering path towards developer relations, but as well. In terms of DevRel at Together AI, obviously, an incredible company getting started, building an audience, building an ecosystem as well too. What does the day-to-day look like for you, Hassan?
Yeah, it's very different. There's some weeks that are content heavy where I'm working on videos and blog posts. There's other weeks where I'm just building, I'm just kind of coding and trying to release these full stack example apps, which is one of my favorite parts of the job. And then there's weeks where it's like mostly events or a conference or stuff like that. And so and there's other weeks where I'm just focused on docs. So it varies a lot. And that's honestly what I love about it. I'm someone that gets bored easily. And so I like the change of pace.
Gets bored easy. I think if I run a survey amongst the developer relations team here at MongoDB, they'd probably all fit into that bucket as well. We get very distracted by the shiny new stuff, and we love to build demos and figure out what's new. It's maybe why we're not normal developers or engineers. We like to kind of get our hands, roll up our sleeves, get our hands dirty, break stuff, and see what's coming down the tracks for everybody. It's great to see everybody commenting in the chat there, where everybody's from India and Brazil and Toronto and Dallas, etc. as well too. So please do keep letting us know. And as we get underway, any questions that you might have. So for those, and I do this all the time on this show, for the non-developers in the audience, the public maybe perhaps who are coming across streams such as this, AI is 18 months old or 2 years old, and certainly generative AI. Together AI, could you tell us a little bit about the inception of that, what Together AI does, what does it help to solve, when was it founded, and the size of the company today?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Together AI, we recently celebrated our 2-year anniversary. So it was founded about 2 years ago. Thank you. Thank you. Really, what Together AI does is it's a cloud platform to help people build with generative AI. So you can think of us kind of as having two sides. One is this API where you just sign up for Together AI, you get this API key, you can call all these open source models ranging from chat models like Llama 3 to image models like Stable Diffusion, embedding models for your RAG apps, which we're going to talk about, that plug very nicely to technologies like MongoDB. And we also help people fine tune their own models. And so if you have Llama 3 and you want to kind of train it on your own data or train it to respond in a certain way, we kind of allow that through our platform as well, through our fine tuning service. So that's kind of the API side. And then our other side is kind of our compute side. And so we offer kind of GPU clusters with kind of specialized software to teams that kind of just need the compute or want to pre-train a model or do whatever they want to do.
Okay, so you're covering a lot of areas there. I suppose, is there a key differentiator for Together AI from maybe some of your competitors or in this space as well too that you would like to single out?
Absolutely, yeah. I think one of the biggest things that differentiates us is our research team. So I
Okay.
forgot to answer your previous question on size. We're about 70 people now,
Wow.
and
Wow.
a lot of the company are these, really, really smart researchers that are hands down trying to figure out how to make inference as fast as possible. We custom built our own inference engine. There's a lot of great ones out there like TRTLM or VLLM that people use off the shelf, but we decided to just kind of custom build our own and write custom kernels and use all these latest technologies like speculative decoding and try to squeeze out as much speed as possible and as much power as possible from these GPUs. And so I feel like that's really what differentiates us. We I feel like lead the market in a lot of ways there in terms of kind of accuracy and speed for some models. And we're kind of constantly innovating around that front.
Wow, excellent. 70 in 2 years. That's a steep growth curve for the company. That's amazing to hear. And these, I suppose, researchers and folks that you have, do you keep them locked away in a dark room building all of this intelligent stuff then?
That's exactly what we do.
Feed them pizzas and Coke.
Oh
Speed,
man.
you mentioned speed and power there. I think when I chat with a lot of companies in this space, it's kind of this never-ending game towards kind of coming back with models that are cleverer, the models that are cheaper, with models that are, larger and better in some instances, or smaller and more defined in others. How do you balance that speed and power? And there's always the cost question as well too, Hassan. What's the cost model or the business model for Together AI?
Yeah, very good questions. I think that that's a great point, that there's always that balance between kind of cost
Hmm.
and accuracy and speed, and you kind of have to find out what you want. Our researchers just try to make everything faster and cheaper for everybody, and then we kind of pass that optionality to customers, and so they can kind of choose. Okay, do you want to choose a small 8B model for your use case, or do you want to choose a larger 7DB one or 405B that just came out with Llama 3? And so we kind of allow people to use whatever they want. We host over 100 open source models. People can kind of check out what they want. And I think something recent that we launched actually is we launched these Turbo and we basically launched these two specialized services for inference. So for inference, we have all these models, but you can also kind of choose your own flavor as well. So even for a specific model like Llama 3 8B, it now comes with a turbo model and a light model. And the turbo model is kind of that LLM quantized down. So all these LLMs that we host in full precision or FP16. Then we also offer kind of FP8 and int4. And so our researchers found a way to distill this model down to be a little
Okay.
bit smaller while maintaining a lot of the quality. And it becomes a lot cheaper for people to use as well. So not only can you choose between all these different models and model sizes, but you could also choose between different quantization levels for each model a lot of the time.
Okay. I know obviously for anybody building generative AI applications, the key challenges, there's a lot, but one of the ones that keeps coming up from time to time, and you mentioned 100 models there, was choosing the right LLM. How does Together AI help with that? Or, is it there, or is it just easy to experiment until you get towards the results that you're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. incidentally enough, I'm actually building a demo right now that helps people do that.
Okay,
And so
brilliant.
that'll hopefully be
We'll have to
out
get you back on the show when when you've done that one as well,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that would be great. But basically, the way it works is it will take a customer's use case, it'll generate a synthetic prompt and some synthetic data, and it will basically
Hmm.
run it
Hmm.
through a lot of these LLMs and kind of compare the results and kind of show you like the best small model for your use case and the best big model. But
Okay.
as of right now, yeah, I think we can kind of offer guidance to our customers based on what we're seeing, based on what we're seeing other people use, or based on their specific use case. But yeah, a lot of the time, you know, they're kind of free to do their own testing. We encourage that. We encourage people to go and do their own benchmarking, and because every use case is pretty unique, and there are some
Mhm,
models
mhm.
that are really good at math or really good at you know, dialoguing in Chinese, for example. And there are models that are really good at summarization, and so it kind of like it's I definitely encourage people to definitely come up with some good test cases and then just
Mm.
try a bunch of LLMs and cheat and see what works for you.
Okay, I look forward to that demo then on evaluations. You mentioned on when you were saying, you know, what services Together AI has. You mentioned fine tuning and training. Where does that fit in?
Yeah, absolutely. So the inference side is kind of the easiest. You sign up for the platform, you get this API key, you can start querying all these models. We bill
Mhm.
per million tokens, and then yeah, you can also do fine tuning through our platform, kind of self serve, which is
Okay.
really nice. You can come get your data, your input output pairs. For example,
Mhm.
for fine tuning, I recently trained a small model to be better at multi step math problems, because a lot of LLMs have this shortcoming where they're not amazing at these like more complex math problems or anything that requires a lot of this reasoning. And so what I did is I found this data set called Math Instruct Online, which had a bunch of
Okay.
these questions and their answers. It had about 250,000 examples,
Wow.
and
Mhm.
I took a super small model, a Llama 3 8B, and I trained it on those math problems, and the results were kind of great. So just Llama 3 8B non fine tuned, I think did about 30 something percent in terms of
Mhm. Mhm.
accuracy. And then the fine-tuned one actually got over 50% in terms of accuracy. So it almost doubled the accuracy just by doing that fine-tuning. So yeah, sometimes it makes sense for people to do that. A lot of the time, I don't recommend that as like the first thing to do, because do need to like get data and you need to do some experimentation and all this stuff. And so I
Mhm. Mhm.
definitely recommend just doing inference, starting with kind of prompt engineering. Even RAG is something that I usually will recommend even before you get to fine tuning, and then you can kind of try out fine tuning as like a last optimization. Obviously, depending on what you're doing. If you already have a lot of really high quality, great data, then fine tuning also might be a great first approach.
Yeah, and that's a good way to describe it. I've listened and read to a lot of things about, you know, fine tuning, and they're going, well, you know, go do RAG first to see how it's doing, and then see whether the gap is. And usually, what will happen is once you finish those experiments, there's another model out there. There's something that's better, and you know, RAG will get to where you want over and above a specialized fine tune model. But as you say, they're very niche use cases as well too, where you need to. I know my son, my youngest son, to be very particular with your math one there to be able to do his homework for him. I've caught him trying to use various tools to shortcut his homework, as any inquisitive child or teenager should
Oh
be
man,
doing, definitely.
that's funny.
So I think you know, you're in developer relations with Together AI. You know, what does that? You talked about the day-to-days for you, but in terms of collaborating with developers, how does Together AI go about that? How does it collaborate with its own community and foster use?
Yeah, great question. We have a Discord community that's pretty active,
Okay,
and a lot of team members. I mean, even our CEO is super active on there, which props
good,
to him.
great to
Like I
see.
feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like he answers more questions than I do sometimes. So yeah, we're very active on Discord, very active on socials. You know, anybody that tweets at us, we have a support email. You know, that kind of stuff. But then also we like to get involved in the community. We like to you know, attend conferences and attend hackathons and kind of talk to our customers face to face, and then do this kind of stuff. Collaborate with our wonderful partners, like MongoDB, and do these live streams and webinars, and you know, joint blog posts. And we've done a lot of joint stuff together in the past. But yeah, just a lot of avenues. We just try to meet customers where they are.
We have, and it's great that Together AI are on board with us in what we call our MAP program, which are MongoDB AI Applications program, where we essentially, through our leveraging of Atlas Vector Search, are able to participate really nicely in the generative AI space, whereby we have an agnostic vector store in Atlas that can work with across all the cloud partners. And now with a lot of the key AI partners out in the space as well too, we've got some, I suppose, some reference architecture, some samples, some demos, very composable. You can lift and shift, the providers that you want, but we easily try to show you how you can get up and running. MongoDB, after all, being a developer data platform as well too. And I know we're going to do the RAG example shortly, which I'm very much looking forward into that. But obviously, in the AI space that you exist in day to day, Hassan, what's exciting you the most about what you see? I find it incredibly hard to keep up with all of the new changes that are coming out, and have to keep very much ahead of all of that in creating collaborations with and handling all of those models, etc. as well too. What's exciting you at the moment? What have you seen recently that you've gone, aha, I didn't know, or I didn't even consider doing this?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think models and models are just getting better and cheaper, and that's amazing to see. I mean, I feel like everybody wins. It unlocks a lot of these use cases where you're like, you know what, like I never considered using LLMs for that, but now with how the market is trending, I could see myself doing something like that. And I'm really excited about kind of the multimodal aspects
Okay.
to it, kind of
Mhm.
combining speech to text APIs with LLMs, or just combining a lot of these different modalities and kind
Mhm.
of building these complex workflows. I feel like the coolest apps I've seen are apps that kind of just chain a bunch of calls together.
Mm.
And sometimes it's just LLMs, and sometimes it's a user records a voice note, and then they transcribe that voice note, and they create an image out of it, and they send it to more LLMs to do more analysis and create a summary and do this and do that and kind of stitch everything together, and it looks so impressive. It's like 10 calls under the hood to all these different models. Yeah, and I guess like agents is like the modern way of of saying
Mm.
something like
True.
that. So I'm excited for a lot of these agentic workflows to keep getting better and better and just unlock new use cases.
Yeah, I know a lot of the team here at MongoDB are very kind of excited about agentic workflows and what can be done there. And I suppose, look, I was heavily involved in a lot of the work that we did with our partners and code assistant tools. And again, just making developers' lives easier and reducing the kind of more mundane and repetitive tasks that they do as well too. Um, you know, as AI keeps changing and fast moving, how do you keep up to date, Hassan? How do where do you go to get your here's the latest and greatest, or keep an eye out for this company or this model? Where do you generally go? Is it blogs? Is it podcasts?
Yeah, for me it's a combination of a couple things. I think Twitter is is one
Hmm.
of those things. Funny enough, just kind of following the right people and watching the news on there. We have an internal kind of Slack channel where we discuss a lot of the latest stuff that's coming up.
Hmm.
And then for podcasts, I really enjoy the Latent Space podcast,
Oh yeah. Hmm.
and it's great. I mean, they have great guests. I mean, they have a great person that runs it, Sean, and yeah, I enjoy listening to that.
Okay, so a good selection of sources there, so plenty to dig into. I mentioned at the introduction that you were on MongoDB Podcast Live a couple of months ago. So anybody who wants to catch up with that prior episode, by all means, look in our channel. You will find it there. But in the last few months since you were on, what's new at Together AI? What's the focus at the moment? What has changed since you were last talking to us?
Yeah, a lot, a lot.
Mhm.
I think Llama.
Things move very quickly in the AI space. 3 months is a lifetime, right?
Oh my goodness, it really is. It really is. Wow. We launched our new inference engine. That's really optimized. What else do we do? We launched those endpoints that I told you, the turbo and light endpoints, where we help quantize
Mhm.
certain models. We're going to roll that out more broadly, but for now, it's there for Llama 3 and Llama 3.1. And we released, I mean, from the DevRel side, we kind of revamped our docs. We released a bunch of open source examples. Llama 3.1 came out, so now we're serving Llama 3.1, 8B, 70B, and 405B. So it's an exciting time. I mean, and Llama 3.1, 405B just unlocks so much. I mean, it's like, you know, the first open source model that kind of is on par with a lot of the best proprietary models. And we released an example app a few days ago on kind of building mini apps with 405B, because it's actually so good at coding that you can actually like build these little mini things. We released that, and it's definitely been an exciting few months.
Good. And I suppose, where do you stand in the open source versus proprietary models? Where do you tend to use open source models for your own projects and things first?
Yeah, I usually default to open source. And then if it doesn't work for some reason, I can kind of go and try the closed source versions. But yeah, I tend to default to open source.
Okay, excellent. So I know that before we get into the demo, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing this and how you built it, because I think that's what most of our community join us to see, you know, things in actions as well too. So anybody who has any questions, any comments for Hassan or for the show itself, just throw them in. We'll try to take care of them as we go through. If not, we'll get to answer them at the end. And again, it's great to see everybody joining us from different parts. We tried to stream this at a time where we could catch the most amount of people. I know it's super early in the West Coast in the US, and it's super late over in APAC, where we do get a ton of our audience from as well too. But it's great. And as I said, you can always watch these back. So in this app demo that you're going to show us, Hassan, what are you going to go through? And you know, how long did it take you to put this together, and what lessons did you learn while you're going through it?
Yeah, so I am going to talk about a demo app that I built called PDF to Chat. It has, you know, about 25,000 visitors, about 8,000 signed up users. And this is an app that lets you chat with your PDFs. And so it's relatively simple. You upload a PDF, it gets ingested. Well, first it gets broken up into chunks. It gets embedded through Together AI's embedding model, and then it gets stored in MongoDB Atlas. And users can then kind of ask questions to these PDFs and use inference on Together combined with the embedding stored on MongoDB Atlas to get answers to their questions. And so I'm just going to talk about, you know, how I built it. It's fully open source. It has a bunch of, you know, thousands of real users that have actually used it. And so I'll kind of just talk about the full life cycle of the architecture, how it works. We'll dig into some code. We'll dig into a demo. I'll show you some analytics. And then I'll kind of show you how it works and how it kind of runs in production. We'll go over some observability stuff towards the end as well.
Excellent. And how did you grow? Like, I mean, if you've got 25,000 users, like that, just word of mouth and people coming across it and diving into it and playing around with it?
I launch on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I do have a bit of following on Twitter, so I do want to call that out. But other than that, yeah, it was just kind of people sharing it and checking it out.
Excellent. And it's fully free and open source for everybody, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
I'm impressed. There's some seriously good numbers. There's plenty of startups out there that would like numbers like that, Hassan. So yeah, that's very, very impressive. Definitely.
You.
Well, look, without further ado, why don't we get into the demo, and you can share screen there and we can kind of take it through. And as I said, anybody have any questions, please drop them into the chat and we'll try and take care of them live as well too.
Fantastic. That sounds great. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah. It's all clear. Wonderful. And the magnification is good, which is one of the things we always get guests to do, is try and zoom in, especially if showing code as well too. If you've got the terminal or an IDE up, it's great to see that people can follow along as well.
That sounds great. All right. Well, thank you. I am going to go through the app I built. So it's pdftochat.com. You can check it out, go create an account, do whatever you want. It helps you chat with your PDFs. And so, you know, you sign up, you upload a PDF, and you can start chatting with it. And like I said, it's completely open source. You can check it out on GitHub as well, github.com/nutlope/PDF to chat. And so we'll just do a super quick demo where I'll log in. I use Clerk for authentication, which is great. It helped me build it really, really quickly. And here, you can chat with your PDFs. You can come here and upload a new PDF and get it ingested. For the sake of time, I'm just going to go with a previously ingested video called Fahrenheit 451, which is actually one of my favorite books.
Okay.
And so you can see, you get the split screen of like, you get the PDF on this left-hand side, you can read it, you can do whatever you want. You can also ask it questions. And so we can ask it, so this book talks about this story, and burning books is a big part of this novel. So we can ask it like, what temperature do books burn at? And we'll ask it. We can ask it a more specific question as well in a bit, because obviously LLMs know this answer. But what's cool is that it'll say, hey, based on the context, it's 451 degrees Fahrenheit, and it gives us a little bit more context, and it also will cite our sources. So it'll tell us, hey, I went to these 4 pages. To get that answer. And we can click on them and actually see them here. And so here, page 194, you can see here it says that it's the book paper combustion points to 451 degrees Fahrenheit. And so
you're getting the context from the source originally as well too. Yeah.
Exactly. It's getting the context from the source, it's citing it, and we can keep, asking it questions and following up. And so yeah, that's essentially the app. Relatively straightforward.
There's no like size limit to the PDF that you could upload into this, Hassan, or is there?
Great question. I think I set maybe a 10 megabyte size limit, but theoretically, no, I don't need to. I think I set that just because I'm using S3 under the hood. I don't want people to upload like, I don't even know, like something crazy. But yeah, theoretically, it can handle any size books. I've seen people upload like 1,000 pages, 1,000 plus pages, because at the end of the day, people upload it and it gets broken down into these chunks and embedded and then stored in Atlas. So yeah, you can kind of break as much text as you want into these chunks, and yeah, you'll see like even in terms of scale, I can click here and see that like I have in this document collection, I have almost 12,000 uploaded PDFs. And so people are uploading all these like white papers and textbooks, and calculus and everything. So there's kind of a lot of stuff in there. It has almost 30,000 visitors overall, and about 8,000 of those have signed up. I'm not going to scroll down because I don't want to dox.
That's good conversion. I know marketing teams would be very impressed with that now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. I think almost 30%. I think it also helps that it's free. So I'm not,
oh yeah, there's an awful cliff as soon as you put in a paywall, right? Massive cliff. Yeah.
I'm sure there would be. And like I mentioned, it's fully open source, so people can check it out. GitHub.com/netlope/PDF to chat. It's a Next.js app. That's what I kind of love building with, and people can very easily clone and deploy their own. I'll go through the tech stack really quickly. I'm using, like I said, Next.js.
Let me get that URL to post into the chat then. So off you, Hassan. If you want to message me that, let me just copy that quickly. A few people have asked us for that.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll send it in our stream.
Perfect.
Okay.
Cool. Let me grab that and I'll post it up for folks. 2 seconds.
Amazing. Yeah. So you can check out the code here in the open source repository. I'll go over the tech stack. So Next.js for the framework, I'm using Mixtral, or I'll probably switch to Llama 3 because this is an older app. On Together AI inference, I'm using M2BERT for the embedding model through Together AI as well. I'm using LangChain for some of the RAG stitching code.
Okay.
I'm using Atlas for my vector database.
Nice to see.
Yeah. And then just a couple other tools, Clerk for auth, like I said, for hosting, and ByteScale for PDF storage. And I have, very detailed instructions for how to set this up as well. Through MongoDB Atlas, it's relatively straightforward. You sign up to Together, get an API key, sign up to MongoDB Atlas, just kind of create a collection, create an index, and you specify that it's 768 for the dimensions of the embedding, because that's what we're querying. And that's basically it. Just a couple steps, and you have your vector database up. You have the Together AI API up, and you can kind of play around with this app locally. You can kind of do whatever you want with it. So That is essentially it. I'll go over okay, so I think 3 more things that I'll go over.
Yeah.
One thing is I'll go over how the architecture works, like how the app
Okay.
actually, like what did I do to actually build it, and then we'll dig into some code, and then I'll talk about
Perfect.
kind of some observability stuff. Does this sound good, Shane?
That sounds great. And as I said, we shared the repo link there, both on YouTube and LinkedIn. Folks can have a look at that there. It's lovely to see all the great README instructions that you have on that as well too. So hopefully maybe viewers of this stream might get you over the 30,000, right? You were
Hey, there you
29,000
go.
odd. So hey,
There
we'll
you
see.
go. That'd be great.
Okay, 800, maybe not quite, but yeah, maybe by the end of the week, we'll have to check back in.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, great. So let's talk about the architecture. I'm actually just going to go through and talk about how the entire app works, right? So you kind of start off with signing up, or we have our homepage, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have
Mm-hmm.
our homepage where people start off with, and again, this is just an Next.js app styled with some Tailwind CSS, and then after the homepage, we do a sign up, and then the sign up, like I said, I use Clark for my sign up, and then after you kind
So
of
that gives you all the types of sign up, social logins, etc. as well too.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. You know, one click and I can add email password. I can add login with the Google, login with like all these other providers.
Brilliant.
And yeah,
Perfect.
I love using these kind of managed services. So yeah, you kind of sign up with Clerk, and then we get our dashboard page. And you know, here in the dashboard page, you can kind of mostly do 2 things. You can either upload a PDF, right? Upload a PDF, and we'll talk about that process. Or you can actually like view a PDF,
Okay.
PDF in the
Yeah.
chat, right? So we clicked on Fahrenheit 451 before and kind of viewed that. So, but I'm going to talk about this piece kind of. So the uploading a PDF piece is really interesting. So I have basically 2 serverless functions that I use, and that's it. One of them is the ingest endpoint. So the ingest endpoint. And what this endpoint does, and we're going to go over the code in a second, but basically what this endpoint does is it will take in the PDF. It will break it into chunks. You know, I've taken the PDF and kind of store it in S3 and store it. Use S3. Break it into chunks, and I use like kind of LangChain to help me do that, to kind of read it and break it into chunks. And then I embed the chunks through using Together AI embeddings. And then I store it. I store the vectors in Atlas. And I use Atlas vector search, you know, kind of in the next thing. And so that's what this is doing, right? All it's doing is taking PDF, breaking it down, embedding the chunks, and storing those vectors. And so now at the end of this process, we have a PDF that's stored in S3 so that I can actually display it to the user. And we also have a MongoDB Atlas vector search set up with all of our vectors that point to that specific PDF. Because remember, you know, we have 12,000 PDFs uploaded. Every single one is kind of stored with their own kind of metadata.
And with regard to the PDF, Hassan, what if, you know, if there was tables in the PDF or images in the PDF, how is that handled? Or is it purely text in this instance of PDF to chat?
Great question. Great question. It's actually purely text for this one. I love that you asked, because I'm actually building an improved version that will handle a lot of these more complex, you know, tables and images. And so I'll use like an image to text API to also do that, and then also embed that and store it in Atlas, so it gets even more context. But yeah, that's a great question.
Great to hear. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, look, I think an awful lot of the time the use cases are purely, you know, getting, you know, chatting with the PDF to get the summary of things or to look for things, etc. as well too. But as you said, it's free and open source, and people are going to upload things, right? So how would it, if somebody just took a PDF that was purely images, what would happen in this instance at the upload stage? Is there any errors thrown, or just you would not be able to create, many chunks or store any vectors of it?
Yeah, great question. I don't think it would error, especially if it had some text, which I would expect it to have a little bit of text, even if it was mostly images. But I think all it would do is it would break that text into chunks and store that text. And so it probably just wouldn't work very well. You have this PDF, you could chat with it, but it could only reference the little bit of text and it won't be able to reference all of these. Like, let's say you had complex diagrams and images throughout. It wouldn't be able to reference those.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a quick question from the chat, which might be very specific, but there might be a swift answer too. If it gets too specific, don't worry, Hassan. But how did you host the front end, back end together in Vercel without vercel.json file? He says he can't find it in the repo.
Oh, you don't actually need a vercel.json file to host on Vercel. That's kind of optional. I actually used to work at Vercel for a couple of years.
So you know this stuff.
So I don't. So I know this stuff. You absolutely don't need a vercel.json to host on Vercel. So if you just follow the instructions in the README, I'm deploying. My application is deployed on Vercel. And if you follow the README and you clone the repo, you can deploy on Vercel pretty easily as well.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you for that timely question. Perfect. Listen, pop on to the next point and I love the way you're presenting this, Hassan. It's super easy to follow, as you're building it there on the screen live for us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And yeah, please keep the questions coming if everybody has anything else. What you brought up, Shane, is super important, by the way. We're seeing more and more customers kind of ask about that. And it's part of the reason why I want to go and build it now. Is because it's becoming increasingly important for a lot of these companies that have, all these internal documents or like all this stuff that actually also incorporate tables and images. That's a lot of the time they contain a lot of very important context that they need to know. So definitely very, very important. Okay, so like I talked about, there's kind of two endpoints. There's the ingest endpoint, which is over here, which happens when you upload the PDF. And then I guess after you upload the PDF, then you can kind of view it and chat with it. So these are kind of, this is step one and this is step two. So I'll move over here. I'll move over here and we'll talk about step two. So we have the ingest endpoint and then we have the chat endpoint. And the chat endpoint is what actually allows us to kind of retrieve a lot of these vectors and chat with the PDF. So basically the chat endpoint, this is what happens. The user types in a message. In a message. And in our case, we typed in, what temperature does paper burn at? What happens is that message gets turned into a vector. And I use MongoDB Atlas vector search. And this is used to basically look up similar vectors. Right? And I look up similar vectors because I want to take the user's question and I want to find the most relevant chunks or the most relevant vectors in MongoDB Atlas. And I want to use that as context. And so user types in a message, that message gets turned into a vector. We do vector similarity search that MongoDB handles very, very well on Atlas. And now I actually have these relevant vectors. I actually decided to look up 4. So I can you can specify and grab how many chunks you want. In this case, I'm grabbing 4 chunks. And so now that I have these 4 chunks, what I can do is I can send them to the LLM. And so what I'll do is I'll send the LLM, the user method, 2 things. I'll send the LLM the user message. And I'll also send the LLM the chunks from MongoDB, or the most relevant. And I'll actually show the prompt in a bit, but this essentially will send it to the user and be like, hey, here's the user message. Here are the chunks from the document. Please answer the question based on these chunks. And that's what it does. And then it returns and send the LLM. This is Together AI. And it returns with an answer. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned prompt there. Obviously, people are aware of the conversations in the world of prompt engineering, etc. Did you play around with your type of prompt for a while in order to get appropriate answers? Because I suppose with, PDF to chat, with all sorts of PDFs that could be uploaded, you couldn't be very descriptive. The prompt, you're not saying, I'm a book reviewer as a prompt, for example. So how did you manage that, Hassan?
Yeah, great question. That definitely took a bunch of trial and error. LLMs are notorious for kind of hallucinating, or one problem I saw initially when I was experimenting with prompts is that it wouldn't actually use, or it would only use the context sometimes. Sometimes it would just go and make up something, or try to just like go from its internal kind of internal knowledge base. And really what I want the LLM to do in this case is only use these chunks. That's it. And if it can't find the answer, I try to make it very specific and say, hi, I can't find the answer. Let's actually try that. Let's see. Let's go back to PDF to chat here, and I'll ask it like, who is Donald Trump or something like that. And we'll see if it actually responds. Okay, it did respond. That's not good. That's not good.
Not in the book, I would imagine.
Yeah. Does not
page 2.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely not in the book. I don't know why. Okay, so here's an example of it not working very well.
There you go. It's a live demo, folks. It's a live demo.
That's how live demos go, and I will take the L in that instance. But if we go back to the prompt and we see, and I tested it on a bunch of prompts and it ended up working, but I guess obviously sometimes it doesn't work, where it will just go and try to make up an answer. I think also. I should probably update this app to use kind of the latest LLMs with Llama 3.1, and I'm curious to see if that ends up affecting things as well. So definitely a lot of trial and error here.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah,
perfect.
Awesome. So this is the architecture. Let's dig into some code.
Brilliant.
Awesome. So I will zoom in a bunch, and you can see. Okay, so this is my app. Let me go through very quickly here. So I'm using the Next.js app router. So I have a bunch of components that I've defined here that I'm using throughout my app. And I also have some util functions that I'm using, but the main code is in this app folder over here. And the app folder actually contains two things. It contains this API folder, and it contains all the other rest of the stuff. So this API folder is where our API routes are defined. And that's one thing I really love about Next.js, where I can define my front end here, which is all of these over here. And then I can define my backend all in the same place, which just makes things very easy to deploy. I don't have to go and create a whole separate backend in another language. And so if I open up our API, you'll see we have two APIs over here. We have the chat API and the ingest PDF API. Both of them we just talked about, right? And then, for the rest of these, this is just the front end. I feel like it's not as interesting to talk about that. I just use all these components, and this is my landing page and my dashboard page, and it just kind of fetches all of the PDFs from a user and displays it. But really what I want to focus on here is this chat and ingest PDF endpoints. So if we go to this ingest endpoint over here, let's talk about this first. So it's about less than 100 lines of code. I mean, it looks like a lot because I'm super zoomed in, but it's not that much code. All I'm doing here essentially is I'm loading my embedding model from MongoDB. And after I do that, I basically get, okay, I'll go down all the way here. So this is just some error handling
and stuff.
User uploads too many documents, I stop them, blah, blah, blah. Over here is where it gets interesting. So what I do is I get the response, right? This file URL is what S3 gives me after the user uploads. So user uploads a PDF, I get a file URL, I grab it and I parse it and I load it with LangChain. So this PDF loader comes from LangChain. And basically all of this is just trying to read the PDF and read everything in it. So at the end of this, I have this raw document of just the text from the PDF. And what I do there is I can then, like I said, we go through this text and we split it into all these chunks. And I chose 1,000 characters for the chunk size. You can kind of experiment and choose what you want. There's no
suits exactly. And the overlap.
See what suits you. You probably, Shane, have more context on what the best chunking strategy, or what even are the different chunking strategies. I don't have too much expertise in this specific area. I kind of just use what people have by default. But yeah, I'm curious if you want to weigh in, feel free.
Yeah, no, I tend to play around with them a bit to see what gives the best. And obviously, you mentioned, speed and performance earlier as well too. That comes into play a little bit as well too. But yeah, it's still a trial and error, especially as you swap around different LLMs as well too. Different type of results given the same prompt. Those sort of things as well too. Chunk size is important.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we do that. We have some chunk overlap as well in these chunks, and then we just kind of split these documents into chunks. And for each of these documents that I embed on MongoDB, and this is a little bit important, we also store some metadata. Because remember, we have all these different users that are uploading all these different PDFs. We have thousands of PDFs. When a user asks a question, I want to direct it only to that one PDF that they uploaded. And so I do this by using metadata in MongoDB Atlas.
Okay.
So
the document ID then. You're only
I set the document ID.
Perfect.
Exactly. So I set a very specific document ID. And then all the way down here, we actually embed the PDF documents. I'm using LangChain as a wrapper for MongoDB Atlas over here, but it adds all the documents, and that's essentially it. And so this is uploading all of our vectors. So here actually it generates the embeddings through Together AI right here, and then down here it adds them to MongoDB Vector Atlas, and then it just returns like, hey, successfully uploaded the PDF, and it returns the kind of the document ID.
Perfect. Very clear, very succinct. Yeah, as you said, less than 100 lines of code to do all that.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's the ingest endpoint essentially, and then we have one more endpoint, which is over here. Oh, that's not over there. Let me open it over here. This chat endpoint over here essentially, and so this chat endpoint also is around just slightly over 100 lines of code, and it essentially it uses LangChain, it uses this retrieval chain to help me do a lot of this under the hood. So essentially, the first thing I do is I grab these messages from the user. And so messages is basically an array that contains all the messages that the user has sent and the assistant has sent. So initially, it's just that first question that we asked it. And then if a user asks a follow-up question, we actually want to also use the prior context. So we take all of that.
So you have the context and the memory then, so to make it work better. Yeah, that's great. Wow.
Yep. So we always want to use all of that context. And then we define our model on Together AI. Here I'm using Mixtral, which again, like I said, I probably should switch to Llama 3. And I grab this model, I load the embeddings from MongoDB Atlas, and I pass them through this LangChain retriever. And if we scroll down over here, I can create what's called this RAG chain. And this RAG chain, essentially, like this kind of LangChain abstracts a lot of this logic away, where it's doing that thing where I have the user message that gets translated to an embedding that gets like looked up on MongoDB Atlas, and then we send back the relevant chunks, and then we send it to the user. So that's kind of a lot of what's happening inside of that. And then we essentially stream the results back. And we want to stream the serialized sources as well. So because we want to stream the answer, and then I want to have those, those 4 buttons that we saw to get sources. And that's essentially it. Essentially all that happens here. We open up the connection with MongoDB, and we close it down here after we're done interacting with Atlas. And that is essentially it.
Excellent. I mean, and as you said, the rest of the stuff in the repo, the rest of the directories and files there are really, kind of just supporting files, presentation files, et cetera, et cetera. The real heavy work is in the ingest and the chat, right?
Exactly. The rest is, like you said, helper functions and front end stuff. Like we have the front end for displaying the PDF, and so I'm using this React PDF viewer library to do that, and I'm using the Vercel AI SDK to call this chat route and get back the responses and set them in a piece of state, and it's all just like kind of front end stuff. But the real meat of everything is in these 2 files.
Perfect. Wow. Yeah, no, super simple and really, really well illustrated. You showed us your dashboard earlier that showed obviously users, etc. Do you have anything in there, Hassan, that shows, the time it took for PDFs to get chunked and the embeddings created? Or, some people always ask us when we do streams like this, if I create this Gen AI app and I'm using such and such an LLM, am I almost going to get hit with huge costs at time to time? You talked earlier about speed and performance and smaller models or subsets, etc. Is anything of that exposed in your dashboard, or any learnings you got yourself with that amount of PDFs uploaded?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I think that feeds great into our next point of observability. So I actually use a product from our friends over at LangChain called Langsmith. And it kind of gives me a little overview of, what's happening. I can kind of debug issues. I can look at latency, like you said. So we asked,
Okay.
what temperature does paper burn at? And you can see that it took 1.8 seconds to run this entire retrieval chain, which is pretty cool. So we can actually see. So we asked it what temperature do books burn at. We can look into the retrieval chain and we can see that, like, here are the context. This is the context that it grabbed from Atlas. And so you saw it grabbed this page chunk and it sends us some metadata as well. So I know kind of what page it's on and what PDF, et cetera, et cetera. This is the next chunk over here. This is the third chunk. And then this is the fourth chunk all the way down here. And then this is the answer all the way here. So I can kind of go through almost each step and see kind of what's happening at this step. Did it grab, here's where I can kind of come in and optimize my retrieval strategy and say, oh, did it grab the right chunks? These are the three chunks that are grabbed, right? One, 2, 3, 4. Did it grab the right chunks? Did it do a good job there? What's the template that I use? You can see here, my system prompt is here as well. You're a helpful AI assistant. Use the following pieces of context. Do not try to make up an answer. And I try to send it this context and say, hey, if the question is not related to context, please politely respond that you're only tuned to answer questions that are related to the context. And so
would they be equivalent to guardrails, for example, that you're trying to set up within the prompt, really, right?
Yes. So these are guardrails within the prompt. If I really was if this was very sensitive, or I had like a ton of paying customers, what I would also do is I would have an extra LLM call after that, and that LLM would really act as the real guardrail. Would say, like, hey, here's the answer, here's the context. Does this answer use the context? Yes, no. If not, you know what I mean? And so there's a lot of additional guardrails you can actually do, and a lot of best practices you can incorporate that I didn't really incorporate. Just wanted to build a little example app for people to use.
Sure.
That you can
visualizing it this way in Langsmith is brilliant. If you want to try and finesse your app and kind of work through it and make it better as you go through, to be able to see the sequence of what has happened in that initial query, that initial message from just asking the PDF.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Langsmith kind of gives me a little bit of that observability. I didn't add observability, so I only added observability for kind of the chat endpoint. I could have done the same thing for the ingest endpoint. To your point, Shane, we could have figured out, how long does it take on average to upload a document or ingest a file, or all of that kind of stuff. So I could have definitely, looked into all of that. I would say, in terms of, you asked about cost as well. In terms of cost overall, I would just say that it's relatively affordable. I would say, Vercel is like, if you want to do Vercel, like the pro version, that's about $20 a month. I would say it's costed, maybe $50 on Together AI to do all of that embedding and inference. MongoDB is very affordable and has a very generous free tier for Atlas. So I don't
good plug. Thank you.
All good. I don't even think I got billed because vectors. For that vector usage. Langsmith is also free for a free tier. So it's surprising the amount of great services that are there. And if you use this kind of trio, I think, of Together AI and MongoDB and LangChain, you're going to be pretty well off.
Okay. And you talked a little bit about, obviously, this is your demo, this is your test, this is kind of you learning and playing around with it. What considerations would you take into hand if this was your startup, this was your company, for example, Hassan, to get from prototype to production? What else would you build on top of what you have showed us already?
Great question. Great question. So I would definitely build additional guardrails to make sure that this did, it only answered questions where it
Sure.
was where the context was there. I would do a lot of testing. I would test a bunch of different LLMs to try to figure out what's the best at these RAG use cases. I would test a lot of different chunking strategies and chunking overlap. I would optimize kind of the retrieval engine and try to figure out, oh, do I return 4 chunks or is it better to return 40 chunks? All of this kind of stuff I would test extensively and try to figure out what works best for me. I'd add these additional guardrails. I'd add, added observability. And then I'd actually try to explore the data every now and then and make sure my customers are happy with the kind of output that they're getting. And also add, what you suggested earlier, actually, Shane, of the make sure it can read tables and images for PDFs and a lot of that kind of stuff.
Excellent. No, and I suppose going back to when you decided to build, PDF to chats, how long did the first version take you, for example?
Yeah, I would say the first version took a couple weeks of work. I had some great help from the LangChain team as well, from Jacob specifically, who kind of helped. But yeah, a lot of my apps, I kind of try to build a proof of concept as quickly as possible and put it out there and then kind of keep improving.
And I think as we got a couple of questions maybe for, changing the embedding model used, etc. You showed it there briefly in the code when it came to actually taking the message through, that message was also ran through embedding. How would you just swap that out? What considerations would you take into place for swapping, say, for some of the other OpenAI, as in this question?
Yeah, great question. So let me actually go to where I define it. So I actually define it here. I don't think I even showed this file, but this is Together AI embeddings. All I do is specify the model name here. And kind of, we support a bunch of different embedding models together. And this also will feed us into like, trying different things. So we can go to our embedding models and there's all these embedding models and they support different embedding dimensions and model sizes and context windows. And so it depends if you want a really big chunk, maybe you use this M2BERT 8 million, 32K. And so, yeah, it's as simple as grabbing this model ID and putting it in here and
swapping it in there.
Bam, we've just changed our embedding model. So I think it just comes down to testing, what works best for you. And the same goes for, the chunking strategy and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, Benon, I hope that answered your question there as well too. Just looking back through, you did touch on this, obviously. Bappy asked about privacy policies. You were just querying PDFs that were uploaded. But as you said, if there was customer data involved in, say, this was an application that was out there and available, that would be the guardrails, etc., that you would put in place to manage the privacy on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we probably have a formal privacy policy that you have on the website and talk about, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think I've seen it before. I think we had a question on one of the live streams was about embeddings, and somebody on the live stream was kind of confusing embeddings to encryption, and I was going, look, you can't reverse engineer an embedding. It's just it doesn't work that way. So even if you take private data and create embeddings out of that, and for some reason the embeddings were exposed, you can't reverse engineer that. That's the key thing. That's the key difference between encryption, I suppose, and embeddings. And I don't know which stream it was, but it was an interesting post-stream conversation I had with a couple of people on that one as well too. Most definitely. There was a question about how many PDFs could you upload into PDF to chat. Did you put a limit on it, Hassan?
Yeah, so I put a limit as to upload 4 for now. I think if they mean at the same time, right now it's only 1. at the same time. But theoretically, I could have done, upload a group of PDFs, and I could allow, multi uploads kind of on in this stage. And so people can chat with not only one PDF, but a bunch of their documents. So all of that is possible, and kind of the code is there if you're interested in doing something like that and extending it.
Yes.
But yeah, for me, I just stuck to one PDF for now.
Okay. And Richmond, who I must full transparency is a colleague of mine here from MongoDB in the developer relations team, asked you models about quantized outputs. Hassan?
He asked about quantized outputs. What is
that? Do you
that?
offer embedding models? Does Together AI offer embedding models that have quantized outputs?
I don't think so. No.
Okay, not at the moment. Maybe in the future, Richmond. Watch this space. Perfect. And I think from the point of view of the comments I saw coming through while you were doing your demo, I think we've covered most of those that come in there. As we're wrapping up, if anybody else has some more comments or questions, please throw them in here. We did, and let me put that back up again, maybe as a banner, the repo link. So let me just copy this. Yeah, anyway, you can see it there that I posted earlier. So github.com /loop /PDF to chat. You can certainly check that out there. Give it some stars, show Hassan some love, and play around with that there as well too. Anything else? What is your next demo that you're working on? You said obviously multimodal with this, maybe in time, etc., etc. Anything else that you have under your sleeve, which will be coming out?
I think I mentioned I just put out that I just put out an example for building these apps with
yes,
Llama 3405B.
Okay.
Yeah, so like this is like you can kind of go. I can live demo it actually. I shouldn't show a video, but this is also fully open source and you can check it out. But yeah, build a like a quiz app about, let's say, MongoDB. Let's see if it actually ends up doing it.
This is proper live stuff. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, there you go. And so it uses Llama 3405B basically to generate a React app. And it's generating it now, and we're gonna ideally be able to see it and use it if it works properly. There you go. MongoDB quiz. What is MongoDB? Relation database, NoSQL, graph, time series. And yeah, kind of has, you can see it has all the questions over here. And we can kind of
the answers
going. Next question, primary data structure. You know what I mean? And you can kind of just play around with it, and it'll
nice
go through them.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully where can people find that if they want to play with that? I'll throw it up into the comments.
llamacoder.io.
Okay.
llamacoder.io. Yeah, so that's the app that I just launched, and I'll probably continue to improve it a little bit and then move on to something new.
Excellent. See, you found the right home in developer relations, I think, Hassan. It's satisfying your curiosity by building these super quick but super well put together demos. Yeah, that's brilliant. You mentioned that as we were chatting about your role in Together AI events and the DevRel things that you do. Anything upcoming, Hassan? Are you speaking anywhere soon?
Nothing upcoming, actually. Interestingly enough, I think I'm just going to be focusing on demo apps and content for a little bit.
Okay, perfect. A bit of a left of field here. One, rather than chatbots, etc., integrating image generation, what kind of other apps can we build using AI? I think the limit is only your imagination. As we said at the intro, for most of us are in the generative AI space for the 2+ years maybe that it's been around. Obviously, machine learning and artificial intelligence have been around a long time. I, for one, am always amazed at the sort of demos that come out. Yes, it's super easy to create cool images. You see some of the video stuff, which is mind-blowing. But you touched on it, Hassan, earlier. I think the agentic AI applications where it's going to do the heavy lifting for you and also manage, any errors or kind of anything that kind of interrupts the flow in an automated way as well too is something that I certainly am looking forward to. People take an example, a large scale example. I want to book a holiday. I want to go away for 10 days. I want the temperatures to be between X and Y. And here's a link to my bank account because that's my budget that I have. And here are the people that are coming. And here's our calendar. And these are the days that we're available. Wouldn't that be brilliant? And that's using AI to do essentially what is pretty much a very huge host of drudgery in trawling the internet to find such things like that, right? Absolutely. Anything interesting for you outside of the RAG and the chatbots and the image and video generation?
No, it's what you said. I mean, agents is really, really big, and yeah, I'm just really excited for the future.
Excellent. Well, look, this has been superb. I love the conversation at the beginning. I did love the way that you essentially showed the architecture live while you were typing your way through it. Fair play to you and your speed typing, Hassan. If this DevRel job ever doesn't go your way, you'll get a speed typist job somewhere, no doubt,
man.
as well too. Anybody who wants to play around with Together AI, as you said, could just jump across to the site and get set up an account and get up and running.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. And as you gave us a generous plug, MongoDB, if you want to go to mongodb.com, jump in there. You can create a free tier on Atlas, an M0 tier, free forever. You can play around, add a project, play around in there and get up and running. I do want to do a couple of plugs. Obviously, on the developer relations team here at MongoDB, all of our content, all of our output from all of my amazing colleagues and some of the product and engineering team is available as tutorials and how-to articles up at developer.mongodb.com. So do check that out if you want to know more or see these types of examples. I know if you search for Together, we have a couple of articles up there as well too. And if you have any particular questions or want to get some feedback from, we spoke about community earlier, and obviously you said Discord was Together AI's big community. MongoDB have our own community over at MongoDB at community.mongodb.com. You can jump in there. We have an AI category, a Gen AI category. You can jump in there with any of your questions. Our community are very active. Our DevRel team are active. Even some of our engineers are very active there as well too, if you want to check that out. And for us, the calling card is Atlas Vector Search that allows us to participate in this amazing, amazing world of generative AI. And we're delighted to have partners such as Together AI on board. And we look forward to doing a lot more with you in the future. But for now, Hassan, thank you so much. That has been superb. It's been a great demo and it's been brilliant to have you. And as soon as you finish those other projects that you kind of teased us with, I'll certainly get you back on to the live stream as well too. I'd love to have you back as a future guest.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shane. This has been super fun and I really appreciate you having me.
Excellent. And to all our viewers who joined in and for everybody who commented, thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, Tuesdays and Thursdays, you'll find us over on YouTube and on LinkedIn streaming regularly. So please keep an eye out for any upcoming episodes there as well too. So from me, Shane McAllister, from Hassan, thank you very much, everybody. It's great to have you. Thank you for joining us on MongoDB TV. Take care.